Tom Steyer's campaign says he now has enough donors to qualify for this month's Democratic debate. The billionaire is now one of 6 candidates who've qualified for the December 19th debate in Los Angeles. Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren will also be on stage. 3 more candidates already have enough donors and can still qualify by December 12th. Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard each need one more 4% poll, while Cory Booker has not registered high enough in any DNC-approved poll for this debate. And here with me now on set is Democratic presidential candidate Tom Steyer. Mr. Steyer, thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here, Elaine.
So first, I'd like to get your reaction to the political news of the day, Senator Harris suspending her campaign. What's your reaction?
I'm sorry she's out. You know, I believe that Kamala is an important voice. I believe she was a strong proponent of justice in our society. She's from my home state of California. She's originally from Northern California, where I'm from. And I'm sorry to see her go because she's someone who I think of as a friend and an important person in the race.
Is she someone that you'd like to see as a potential running mate?
I would love to work with Kamala going forward, and I assume we're going to in some way, shape, or form. She's someone who I respect and like.
As you know, as of this moment, none of the candidates set to appear on the debate stage on December 19th is a person of color. What message do you think that sends about the Democratic Party in 2019?
Look, I think it's very unfortunate. I think that the Democratic Party has got to represent people across this country. I think that the more diversity we have, the more diversity in candidates that we have, the better. I'm very sorry that that's true. I obviously don't control it, but I'm very sorry that we don't have as diverse a candidate pool as possible to represent as many points of view as possible to give people the best possible choice.
Do you have any view on why that is, though? Why that?
Well, I'm very much hoping that, in fact, the 3 candidates that you were referring to earlier, Andrew Yang, Tulsi Gabbard, and Cory Booker, will all make it to the campaign stage because I think they're all important voices.
So let's talk about fundraising. So according to your third quarter fundraising statement, you spent $30 million to bring in $2 million, and you've now passed 200,000 donors. How much did you spend? How much did you bring back in?
I honestly don't know. You know, I've been focused on the message of my campaign. I've been focused on talking to as many people as possible. I actually don't, that we have a campaign manager, Heather Hargreaves, who runs the campaign on a day-to-day basis and who I trust. And what I'm really focused on is to get to see as many Americans as possible and explain why I'm running for president, what I think is important, how I think the government is broken, and what I think we need to do about it.
I want to talk more about your message in just a moment, but there's a clip that I want to play from Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar talking about your political ad specifically in New Hampshire today. Let's listen to that.
I was in New York, as I mentioned. I did The View, which, if you haven't seen, was a lot of fun. And I was in the hotel room, and I saw, I think, 7 Bloomberg ads and 2 Steyer ads. And I thought, this is all people are seeing here, because it is not one of the 4 early states. And I just think that puts even more of a good burden on the people of New Hampshire to make a good decision, because you just shouldn't be able to buy a victory.
So essentially, Senator Klobuchar was saying that people should not be able to buy their way into a victory. She talked about being here in New York City and seeing both Michael Bloomberg's ads as well as your ads, and she was making those remarks in New Hampshire. But what do you say specifically to this accusation that you are buying your way into this race?
Look, I think the question for every single candidate, including Senator Klobuchar, but including everybody, is message. I don't think if you have anything to say, it doesn't matter about money. What really matters is who has a differential, important message that Democratic primary voters respond to, and who do they trust to actually bring about the changes that I think we all agree need to happen in the United States of America. And I think that is the critical issue for me. I think that's the critical issue for every single person who wants to be the Democratic nominee. What is the message, and do people believe it?
So I do want to ask you, though, Senator Harris brought up this same point in her video. She talked about the fact that she can't self-fund a campaign, unlike billionaires, perhaps such as yourself. What would you say to a Senator Harris specifically about this issue of being able to continue, because it is ultimately about who has the resources to continue on down the line?
I think you can continue on down the line, but that doesn't mean you can be successful. The question here is about who is actually getting through to the American people. Who are they listening to? Who do they believe? You can keep going, but that doesn't have anything to do with actually having people listen to your message. The whole question here is who has a message? Look, I'm talking about a broken government, and I'm talking about my history of taking on corporations and beating them. If no one thinks that's the problem, if no one believes me in terms of my argument about why an outsider can really change this broken political system, then it doesn't matter how many times they hear it. The real question is who has a message that's differential? And you can look at the people who are doing well and see that actually they are connecting.
So what is your central message? Why are you, Tom Steyer, running?
We have a broken government in Washington, D.C. It's been purchased by corporations. Everybody on that stage wants pretty much the same progressive policies with important differences, but with the same goals.
So what makes you different?
I have a decade-long history of taking on corporations and beating them. I have a decade-long history of actually building grassroots organizations for direct democracy and putting power back to the people. What I'm talking about doing is making structural changes in Washington, D.C., including term limits, and actually giving the American people the right to direct democracy to pass our own laws. I'm talking about how are we going to change the culture and operations of Washington so that, in fact, the American people's rights can be observed, the rights to affordable health care, the right to quality education starting with pre-K, the right to a living wage, the right to clean air and clean water. We all want them. They're actual rights, but we're not going to get them until we break the corporate stranglehold on our government. And we're not going to deal with our climate crisis until we break the corporate stranglehold. And I believe I'm the person who has the history of actually effectively beating those corporations and dealing with our climate crisis real time. And you can look at the last 10 years and see who's actually done it.
So you're taking a very different approach than your fellow billionaire in this contest, Michael Bloomberg, who is not going to be on the debate stage. Why do you think your strategy of being in that national spotlight on a debate stage in that kind of forum is better?
Well, Elaine, my whole goal in this campaign is to be able to talk to as many Americans directly about what I think the message is. And I look at that debate stage as a chance to explain why I'm running and who I am in a mass instance. Do I think it's really important to be able to go and look at people face to face and hear from them what they care about? Sure, that's what I spend the bulk of my time doing. And I think if you don't do that, then you shouldn't really be running for president. If you can't look someone in the eye and hear what's going on across the country and learn from that and take it in, I should. But the debate stage is a chance to address the American people broadly. And so as a result, I think it's important to do it.
Are you concerned at all that perhaps you may be seen as sort of engaging in the political food fight as opposed to, say, a Michael Bloomberg, who will then be in a position to say he is not part of that fray?
Well, the funny thing is, Elaine, if you actually watch the debates, what I'm doing in those debates is making a positive statement about what I believe in, what I believe the challenges are, but what I believe the opportunities are actually to put America on a fantastic position going forward.
What do you say to voters, Democratic voters, who look at you and look at Michael Bloomberg and say they don't understand why a billionaire is running for president of the United States at a time when we know inequality in this country runs this spectrum across socioeconomic, racial groups?
Well, I think that if people get to know me, they'll understand that I have a history of actually standing up against corporations and on the side of people for a long time, very successfully. And I think that if they get to know me, they'll know that I'm someone who, yeah, I built a successful business. I took the giving pledge to promise that I would give the bulk of my money away while I'm alive to good causes. And I've spent a decade putting together coalitions of Americans to take on unchecked corporate power, and we've been winning. So I think I have a history of doing it. And in addition, I've spent 7 years traveling this country and listening to people. So if you want to know who I hang out with, there's an image of, when you say the word billionaire, of what I'm doing, but actually I'm doing something completely different from that. I'm really traveling around the country and talking to ordinary citizens to understand their reality, to make sure that everything that I do reflects it.
Tom Steyer, I'm afraid we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming on Red and Blue. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Elaine. Nice to see you.